Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Your host, the Raven, here. Bring you some Neverwinter Nights action. Valindra's Tower. As we kick this off, we get right into the battle or whatever. I mean, as soon as we start, we interrupt her with her Dracolich ritual or whatever. Which, if you ask me, I think it's kind of silly of her to try to resurrect the dragon right at the entrance, of her castle or whatever. 'Cause, I mean, this is still Neverwinter territory. As you can see, she's pretty upset about it. How dare you interrupt me? But I don't know why she did that. But even though she made this mistake of trying to resurrect that dragon in the beginning, the castle or whatever, she is by no means a pushover at all. So first things first, I'm gonna power up a little bit and get into it. The music that you're hearing isn't from Neverwinter, the online game, by Cryptic. It's actually from Neverwinter Nights, the PC game. I picked this music because I had a little bit of problems with the sound quality when I recorded this video, but the footage was just too epic to throw away. I was like, I'm not gonna get rid of this footage of, because this is a very difficult dungeon. Not only is it difficult as so far as the difficult, how tough the enemies are and how many the enemies there are, it's difficult to find a good team. I mean, it doesn't matter how powerful you are yourself. I mean, without a good team, you're gonna get killed. I mean, it's just all there is to it. I mean, it's your skill and the skill of your teammates and their willingness to help one another, their knowledge of the battle and their knowledge of the dungeon itself. I mean, it's difficult. I've been through here 2 or 3 times, and I've beaten it twice, failed miserably once. I failed miserably twice if you count the time that, as when I was first playing Neverwinter, I only had like a gear score of 12k, which is enough to get into Valindra's Tower, but there's nowhere near what you need to be able to defeat Valindra's Tower. So I stuck my head in here as a kind of like a young whelp, a young pup, and the first guys at the gate like annihilated me, and I was like, whoa. And that kind of set the tone for me right away. I knew how hard it is from that experience. It was extremely difficult. So I waited, until I got more powerful, and I got more familiar with the game, and now here we are. And I find this dungeon to be one of the most fun I've had so far. I like a couple of them really well, but this one, it's the most action packed. I mean, there's guys everywhere, and as I stated earlier, it's not so much about individual effort, which is a problem you often find in online multiplayer games, whether it's shooting, whether it's MMO, whatever it is. There's generally always 1 or 2 people who want to be a hot shot, and want to run off and leave everybody, because they're so powerful and they can do the whole dungeon by themselves, or they think they can. But fortunately today I didn't run into that problem. I got a great crew. We have with us, we have another control wizard, we have a great weapon fighter for DPS, and we have a trickster rogue for DPS, and obviously we have a cleric, for healings and protection, which she comes in handy. Like, everybody is necessary. You need a well-balanced team. That's another thing that I find she usually kind of lacking with the Neverwinter community. It's like there'll be teams of all DPS or it'll be all control wizards, and one control, trickster rogue or something like that. And the game is about balance. There's no one character that's, Superman or something, that he could just do everything alone. And, the great weapon fighters and guardian fighters, while powerful, and have high defense and stuff like that, they can take the hits and deal out the damage. They go down easy if they're surrounded, because there's only so much even they can take themselves. So that's why you need control wizards to keep those the crowds under control. When there's like 50 guys at once, it'll overwhelm even the most stalwart warrior or whatever. So you need control wizards, you need trickster rogues for DPS, you need great weapon fighters and guardian fighters for DPS, and you need clerics to heal you, because you may say, well, what if you don't don't get hit? And there's a lot of dungeons. It's true that you can probably go through without a cleric, because if you're strong enough, like you have your defense up or whatever, you got pretty good gear. You can just like simply not get hit. Just avoid hits. But in the serious dungeons, like the one we're currently looking at now, you need a cleric. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Temple of the Spider, epic. Valindra's Tower, and a couple of others. Like a cleric is mandatory. I mean, you will be destroyed without a cleric. I mean, there's so many guys, and there's so many AoEs. As you can see on the ground, like those dogs constantly put down AoEs, and they have little stupid dash moves or whatever. And quite frankly, I find those dogs to be one of the most irritating enemies you can face in any dungeon or just regular questing. Those dogs, I'm telling you, anybody who's played Neverwinter for any significant amount of time will tell you they hate those dogs guts. Especially the ones that have like the little dwarves riding on them. They're even worse because they have such high defense. Like it even takes a great weapon fighter a minute or two to bring one down. So anyway, we're making good progress though. I got slammed earlier, but that's what the Soul Forge armor enchantment is for. It's for those times when you do go down. And that was an off shot of that arcane shard. I hate it when it does that. Like every now and then you kind of get like a crappy cast of that particular ability, and like the shard will form on the side of you or behind you or something like that, and it'll be pressed, and it'll put you in an awkward position. Sometimes you can recover and aim it to where it needs to go. But a lot of times, no, you can't recover. It's just going to go like off somewhere and going to be useless. And that's, pretty irritating. And right here in this courtyard, we have 2 iron golems jump out. And while powerful, they can be controlled. So the thing here is not so much, fearing, their size. It's just make sure that keep them under control, or keep energy, keep power on them. Depending on your class, you know what job you have. As you can see, you look through that guy's legs, the great weapon fighter went down, because those things are powerful. The enemies, the Thayan type enemies, they do a lot of damage for their strikes. Like I would say more so than a lot of enemy types, because there's with Neverwinter there's like a handful of enemy types. You have goblins, trolls, you have human type guys, and then you have like kind of like zombies and undead types. And I would say out of all of them, the humanoid or the human creatures like wizards or giant dread warriors or whatever, they do the most damage with their hits. The dwarven kind of enemies, they just are really hardy. They don't seem to do that much damage. It just seems to be a lot of them, and it takes a while to kill them. So we're making our way pretty good through here. And this room here, I've never seen anybody go up those stairs. As you can see, I looked up there out of curiosity, but I'm not going to waste the time to go up there, especially since my team is leaving. And every playthrough I played, I've never seen anybody go up there. I don't know if it's just nothing up there, or if it's just like a simple treasure chest or something. But whatever it is, I guess it's not worth everybody's time to try to find out. Maybe one day for kicks I'll just go up there just to see, but not when I'm playing serious. Boom. Now we're at our first mini boss, and he's the only mini boss, which I'm kind of surprised at that. There's other dungeons where there's 2 mini bosses before you face the actual boss. So in Valindra's Tower, I was pretty surprised that it's only 1. But although Shatterspine, he's difficult not because of his particular abilities or strength. It's because he summons so many guys. As you can see, there's 2 dreadnought dudes getting up right there. There's another one running behind me real quick, and I'm trying to put the gravity well on him, but I'm taking way, and I just got it off, but I was getting slammed, so I had to get out of there. It's just, and those guys that he summons are more difficult than the boss himself. As you can see, he's almost dead. And I have to control that guy. I had to strangle him to keep him off my tail. And to see the boss is dead, but look how many guys are still alive, and they don't disappear when you defeat, the mini boss. So it could be a hairy situation, especially if you're unprepared for that. Most dungeons once you destroy the boss or something, the guys will disappear. You know, his little helpers will disappear, but not here. Like, no, you have to take them out. They're like real extra dudes or whatever. But he goes down because, like I said earlier, I'm on a boss team, which is really hard to get. And I mean, and that kind of ruins the thrill of online MMOs for me. I really enjoy multiplayer. I enjoy getting online with people from around the world and kicking all types of monster ass. But when you get the showboats, or you get the arrogant ones, or the really bitter or mean ones, it really knocks down the fun factor, So it's very important for me to have a good team, and that they work together as we're all doing, because I mean stuff gets hectic. Like, this is a hairy situation right here. I remember facing it. It's a whole nother story, like narrating over while I'm watching it calmly, after I already know I've been victorious, than when I'm actually playing. Because look at those guys who just got up there. Like, look how many guys got summoned, and you see 2 people are down on the steps, but they got picked up. And this is where it gets hairy for control wizards, because there's so many guys and they're not being controlled. Because 2 people went down, and the aggro changes from the great weapon fighters and the guardian fighters, to the control wizards or whatever. But luckily they got picked up fast, and even though I got slammed again, I had got soul forged, rune brought me back to life or whatever. And you have to be able to take care of yourself as a control wizard. It's like your job is, to me, I say it's like the dark side of being a cleric. The cleric, they look over everybody but for healing. They make sure the people are buffed, people are healed. They try to save whoever's life whenever possible. So they look after the team but for good. As a control wizard, you have to look out for the team but for evil. Instead of healing people and making sure people are buffed and taken care of, it's more like you take care of the team by kicking the crap out of the enemies, by making sure the enemies are in check. But if the great weapon fighters go down and we draw a lot of aggro or something like that, things can get out of hand really fast. So, but luckily we recovered from that situation, and that's just like the last push before Valindra herself, who's through this door. And we have our second piece of music here. I decided to switch up the music, because I wanted Valindra to have something special, so I picked another song. This is also from the Neverwinter Nights PC game. I believe it's Neverwinter 2 Mask of the Betrayer or something like that, and this is the Betrayer's theme. It's going to come up once we enter her chamber or whatever. So anyway, take time at the campfire to heal up, buff up, switch your powers, because Valindra plays no games. She is very difficult. Like, I mean, with experience, and it's not just knowing what to do. It's just she's one of those bosses that something can go wrong, like somebody gets killed on accident or something happens, and it throws the team off balance or whatever, and then you wind up dead. Everybody's dead. And it's not so much as someone's fault. A lot of times people say, well, such as, you'll see arguments break out in the chat. Well, such and such wasn't doing this, and such didn't do that. And you have to understand it. Well, every now and then you do get like lazy people, or, maybe somebody wasn't focused as they should be, and then maybe you'd be playing with a new person, who's totally new to the experience. But it's not always somebody's fault. Things happen. It's a tough boss. Things can go wrong. So anyway, first off, same as any boss, try to debuff her, put as much power on her as possible, as much damage on her as possible. But she has a couple of attacks that need special attention. One is the magic fist. It's like a shadow fist or whatever that pops out of the ground. It grabs one team member automatically. It's unavoidable. You can't dodge it. Whoever she targets will be grabbed, and it's random. You don't see her targeting you, so you don't know what's coming. You just get grabbed, and then you need help. So you have to keep an eye on your teammates, because if you only focus on Valindra, somebody will be grabbed and you won't know it, and they'll be dead before you can make it to them to help them. So that's like the first attack she does that requires attention. The second attack that requires, the team's attention or special attention is when she summons stone totems or these stone golems or whatever that if left unattended they'll turn into soldiers, and those soldiers are really tough to kill. I mean they're really strong enemies, and if you get hit by one, if a lot of those guys get out, it can, it'll be a nightmare for your group. So that's the second attack she does. And here you can see, here's the fist, the first instance of the fist. And what does it say? It says phantasmal claw or something like that. But yeah, what it does, it grabs somebody, they can't move, they can't get out of it, and it drains their health until they die. And depending on the person's defense stats or whatever buffs or shields they're using, it'll take longer, more or less time. But a lot of times though, if you don't get to them fast enough, they will be dead. And see, I'm grabbed here, and see, if she switches attacks, sometimes you can get out of it. That was just luck. Although you see it on the video, it seems like I dodged out of it. I didn't dodge out. It's just she just gave up on the attack or whatever because she wanted to switch to the soldiers. And you can see one soldier got out, but you can't, since it's just one, he's not so much of a threat. He's more kind of like collateral. Like, if he's close to you or he's doing something to you, kick his ass. But if he's just like somewhere, chasing, he's so far away, there's nothing you can do about it, then you actually kind of want to ignore him a little bit. But see, as a control wizard, it's also my job to like control like guys like that. So I make sure if every time I see him, I try to put a strangle on him or something. Just kick his ass, in passing or whatever. But keep your focus on Valindra. As you can see, got another grab. And I saved my ice spike just for that, because you don't want a team member to get killed, especially your cleric. If your cleric gets killed, y'all are in a world of hurt, because then it's a race against time, because it's your DPS fighters versus Valindra's ass kicking ability, and whoever whoever does the most the fastest wins. And Valindra has a lot of hit points for her size. Like, out of all the bosses in the game, like, you see dragons and stuff like that, and they have a lot of hit points, but Valindra has a ton of hit points. I don't know if it's just maybe it's just high defense, really high defense, and really high like damage mitigation or whatever. But she takes a long time to defeat. I would say she even takes more time to defeat than the blue dragon that she's so fond of. So like I say, you need the cleric to be up. You need all your team members to be up. Like if somebody gets grabbed or those stones come out, you have to turn your attention away from Valindra and focus on those. And you can see I got helped out of there, and it feels, and you get nervous when you're the one grabbed in that fist. I mean, you're praying that your team notices it, that they're doing a good job, that they're paying attention, because if they're not, I mean, it's game over. And trust me, I've been in a lot of dungeons where you can be grabbed, grabbed by her or grabbed by another boss, and your team members just aren't paying attention. They're so busy trying to beat the boss that they don't look around, and they fail to realize that you're not gonna just beat the boss in 1 or 2 hits. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's gonna take a long time. So, and the boss will be there. I mean, they're not gonna just say, "Oh, okay, you're focused on helping your friend. Well, all right, I'll be back in a little while," and then they leave, for a coffee break or something. The boss will always be there. So make sure your focus is on helping your team. And I'm trying to be extra careful this time around with the second form of this attack, because I got hit earlier and I went down on Soul Forge, so I'm a little bit nervous because that thing kills. Those blasts she does. Special things about this attack: obviously avoid the red AoE areas on the ground. You want to avoid those at all costs. But you also want to be careful of those ghosts that are following people around. Like, you see there's a couple behind me. They don't kill you outright, but they just being near them does like a damage over time effect, and it sizzles. It even makes like a sizzling like sound effect. And the more ghosts there are, the faster or the more powerful the effect is. So if you have like 5 ghosts chasing you, you better run for your life. I mean, and try not to run into other people. So anyway, here's one of her last push attacks where she summons this. It's the same guys, but this time she summons so many of them. You know, you're only on a team of 5, so I grabbed 2, and you know the rest of them, you know, just out there. And you know, you see the rest of my team, they're trying to, you know, they got her down below 10%, so they're trying to, like, you know, finish her off or whatever. But she'll summon so many of those soldiers that you can't, you know, defeat all of them. But we put the power on her. There she goes, disintegrating the dust, which that's an awesome effect. Like, she has one of the best boss deaths I've ever seen in a video game. Like, her body turns into that ashy powder, because you know she's just like a little mummy, and her soul like explodes and goes into that gem, and which I think that's a secret room inside her tower or whatever, because you can't access that in the game. It's just you know, it's just like a story area or whatever, and I guess that's how she keeps coming back. She goes back inside the crystal until she can get another body or something. So anyway, that's Valindra's tower. She drops Seals of the Shadow Mantle, and you also, when you open her chest, you have a chance to get what I want is a shard of Valindra's crown, but since I've only beat the dungeon twice, I mean, I'd have to be extremely lucky to get that out of the chest. But I did get something new to add to my collection.